Hey ladies, my name is Jade and this is Janessa, and we both have the privilege of serving here on the kids team at Substance, but also we get to do life together. And so we've been having some really fun, deep conversations that we would love to invite you guys into. They're kind of raw, kind of messy, kind of soul tensiony, but we're just super excited about this. We're going to be talking about how to hear from God's voice, and when do you hear from God's voice, and what do you do with it when you do hear from him. And so we kind of both share some similar stories, but we'd love to start off with just when we get downloads, and where do we get them, when do we get them, how do we know it's God. So we'll go from there. So Janessa, do you want to tell us a time that you heard from the Lord?
Yeah. Oh, so many fun times. It's been fun to reflect on them too.
Yeah.
Okay. A mom one I remember recently. My 4-year-old was just like 10 out of 10 meltdown.
Yeah.
And, you know, Logan's a sweet guy, but he was like not having it. So I did the like, you lock yourself in the room, crank the worship music, and I'm like, Lord, like, what do I need to do for this child? Because I just don't have it. And I felt like God said, one thing at a time. And so the rest of the day, it was like just one thing at a time. Like right now, we're just having snack. Just having a good snack time. And then later it felt like something I needed to remember too, because I can do so many things at once and get stressed. And so then God was like, yeah, that was kind of also for you. I mean, it's for your 4-year-old, but also for you.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay, yeah. So like the Lord also does that to me. He always speaks to me right now through my kids. It started when like Cedar, my oldest, was like probably 2. And it was super silly. Like I was making mac and cheese and he wanted to eat it right away. And I was like, dude, if you're going to eat it now, like, you're going to burn your mouth. And all of a sudden, like, I felt like the impression, like, Jade, listen to your words. And I'm like, oh, yeah, if I do stuff now that I'm not ready, that it's not ready for me, I'm going to get hurt.
Yeah.
And it was like an instant, like, I hear you, Lord. I got you. Okay. Yeah.
Shower is another one for me. Maybe it's because, like, you have no
yes.
distractions. Like, there was one, my oldest was 3, and we were getting ready for our second year of Best Summer Ever, small groups for kids. And I was in the shower, and the Princess Storytime group came into my mind of, like, a group for her and, like, kind of, like, a couple ideas about, like, what we would do. And then it was like, oh, perfect, boom, there you go. But it wasn't, it was just like, this is a small group you should lead. This is what it should look like. Yeah. Shower is a really great place.
I love the shower. The shower does do so many things.
Just removes everything.
It just removes everything.
Yeah.
And it, like, literally, like, you're like, okay, God, I can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we also share really, like, similar stories about our third babies. So do you want to share about Canaan's story?
Yeah. So I have Lila, who's 6, Logan, who's 4.5, and then I was done. I was like, I wanted to grow our family, but I was like, no more pregnancies, no more births.
Sure.
I don't want to do that journey again. Anyways, then during the fast, this would have probably been like 2 fasts ago. Wasn't fasting about kids or anything, but just very open of like, okay, like, what do you have for me, Lord? And I felt like having another baby was something he spoke to me about, which definitely felt one of those, like, that's not me.
That wasn't God.
That's not my idea. Yeah. And I wanted to sit in it for a while because I knew my husband would be like 100% on board. So I didn't want to like put it out there and then have him be like, never mind, just kidding, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
So I sat in it for a while, but I just felt very like, I think I'm supposed to have another baby and trust God with that. So then I told him, he was like, that was not what I was expecting you to say. Like, anyways. And then, then we kind of thought about when we wanted to try. And leading up to the birth, it was like lots of words from friends, encouragement, but also just like prophetic words about it being really redemptive, the birth, the postpartum, just everything.
Yeah.
A lot of cool words and encouragement. I still freaked out, though. I think it was like month 8. I can picture sitting in our basement, and we got done watching a show, and I just looked at Michael. I'm like, I'm afraid it's going to be awful again. And I just start crying, and we prayed through it. And, of course, the birth was like I'm probably going to cry thinking about it. But it was still magical. Incredibly, like, hard, because birth is always hard. But it was, like, so peaceful. The timing was so much better. My son arrived, like, the birth before was just like a little too fast for me, and so it felt really out of control. And I didn't like my nurse, I didn't like my doctors. Like, I literally I ended up knowing the nurse that was with me.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
She's like, you're Janessa. I'm like, oh, hi.
Hi.
So now we're getting to know each other a little more. The doctor was wonderful. I laughed when he was born.
Oh.
Like, I cried, but like in a good way of like laughing. And so
that's so sweet.
God was with me in it, even though it was something I didn't want to do, but like God so spoke to us.
Yeah.
Even in his name, I don't know. Just
that's so cool.
Yeah. And I know it's similar to how Shiloh came about.
Yeah, so our youngest, our third, so after our second had a really traumatic birth. And so me and my husband were like, yeah, we're done. We're not going to have another one. And then the Lord literally, like, I felt his impression be like, you're going to have another baby. It's going to be a redemptive baby, but not just for, like, your birth and pregnancy, but it's going to be for your whole family. And so I was like, at the time, like, I was terrified. And it kind of goes into my other, like, anxieties that I have dealt with. And 2 weeks later, we find out we're pregnant. And we're like, this is so fast, Lord. Like, you told us what's going to happen, and now it's happening, and I don't know where we are.
Yeah.
But the really cool thing is the Lord gave me a verse, and I put it on my phone screen so I could just read it every day. And it was Psalms 91:4, and it said, his faithful promises are your protection and armor. And I was like, okay, Lord, like, if this is your promise, like, you're going to protect me through all of this. And so there was a lot of things that had happened that would come up a little bit and I'd be like, nope, we're good. Like, we're good. And then when we were about 40 weeks pregnant, I was in just a normal doctor's appointment. And they were, like, looking for his heartbeat, and they couldn't find his heartbeat. And I was like, oh, okay. And then when they found it, it was super low. So the doctor's like, you need to go to the emergency room. This is an emergency. And so I was like, okay. And so, like, I'm driving to the doctor's or to the hospital, and I was, like, crying because this is exactly what happened with my second birth. Like, it was an emergency C-section. And I called some friends, and they were like, no, remember what the Lord told you. And I was like, yeah, okay.
Yep.
So I get to the hospital, and of course, everything's fine. But then, like, the last 2 weeks, like, were, like, the hardest because I had to fight against every other person's word, because there were people being like, you need to do this, you need to do this. Like, people were telling me, like, your body is not doing well, or your child's body is not doing well. And it was like, no, like, I know what I know. He gave me a promise. I'm going to stand on it, which is probably the hardest thing to do, if I was to be honest. But then we had the most beautifulest birth it was the best. Like, it was everything that the Lord had promised.
Yeah, of course.
Yes. So I don't know why we question it, but
I don't know. We do.
We do.
We totally do.
But it was, so redemptive and just beautiful. So, yeah.
Helper.
So fun. Should we talk about?
Yeah. What about when it's not? Because, like, I mean, birth is still, you have to, like, go through the pregnancy, and, like, you have those, whether it's your own anxieties or, like, a doctor or something that makes you feel like, okay, maybe this isn't going to be, like, sometimes, like, what God speaks to you about, like, takes a while to come to fruition.
Yeah.
What's that about? What do you do? What's that about?
Yeah. So I guess, like, kind of like you, like, we both have these things that kind of keep popping up. And one of mine is I have, like, sometimes debilitating health anxiety. And it's been something that I've been praying against for probably years. And when I'm constantly looking for a word, like, sometimes I feel like I'm in, like, the wilderness where I'm like, Lord, where are you? Like, I don't see you in this. Yeah. And I know you kind of have a similar thing with your finances.
Yeah, we went on a journey, probably, like, oh my goodness, probably a year and a half ago. Sorry, God called us to, like, we were, like, praying over a particular heart for the house, and God was like, here's what I want you to do. And we're like, okay. But part of it wasn't just, like, we've had those in the past where it's like, okay, you need to, like, give this much money, and we're like, okay, let's do it, and it's super exciting. But this one came with, like, a little bit more of a challenge. It was like, you need to give this also because, which is funny because he did speak to us right away, but, like, somehow it gets lost over time. It was also this message of, like, you are getting too much security in your own ability to manage your finances, and you're not letting me be that person, which, as I mentioned, we went through financial peace, we did all the things, but, like, I'm a hyper saver. Like, I would just save, it's like baby step 3 in the Dave Ramsey process. I would just stay there forever. I would just, like, save. I don't know why. Yeah. It's like a security thing. And so when God challenged us, it also came with this, like, I need to, like, help you think differently about provider was a big word there too.
Yeah, which is so hard though.
Yeah, so we did that, but then we went into this wilderness season of, like, every weird thing happening. Garage door broke, our taxes were somehow filled out wrong, so we owed a bunch. I don't know, insurance, then a tire, then insurance again. It was like, it almost got to this, like, laughable point of, like, and so I was like, okay, God, like, again, in my mind, I'm like, we did what you said, so why aren't you this, like, transactional thing? Right. And God's like, I told you, like, I need to, like, work this through you. right before we gave in that offering, actually, someone behind us at church, who I think we were just in the process of like, are we going to give whatever? Someone behind us at church gave us a prophetic word, and it's on our fridge. So we try to read it more often, but it says, they said, I just have the sense that like you're always going to have enough for what you need and enough to be generous too.
Wow.
That's all the season we've been in. Like every weird thing that popped up, we were always able to cover it. Like sometimes down to the penny, it'd be funny.
Right.
How much like, okay, well, here's this provision for this random thing that happened. And still enough to like, hey, let's like, this person's having a baby or this person's going through a hard time. Like, let's be generous in that way.
Right.
But we call it kind of like our manna season. Like it's just enough for today, and tomorrow's a new one, and we have enough.
Yeah.
But also, I've been mad at God during that time too, because I kind of am over it.
Yeah, but I think that I'm starting to like really, really love this season as much as it's like tearing me apart. Because I'm like, Lord, like I just want this anxiety gone. I feel like it's just like in my head, and I'm like, Lord, I know you could just like change my brain.
Yeah.
And
snap your finger.
Snap your finger.
Yeah.
And what I've come to realize is it's actually like the place where he meets you the most. It's a place where he actually wants to break strongholds that have been like generationally there too. But also he wants to teach you in that season too. So I think there's like a breaking that happens, which is hard but beautiful. There's like a teaching season where he's teaching you that like he's provider, or like for me, he's teaching me that he's like my protector.
Yeah, he's going to take care of you.
Yeah. And I think that, so we're in the 21 day of fasting right now. And I think we both kind of came, yesterday we were talking.
Yeah.
And we're like, we got a word, we got a word.
Speaking.
He is speaking. And I think also we should say that we are daily in our word, like searching and like holding on to like what he says in his scripture too, in his word, like, you know. So yeah, do you want to share what your word was yesterday? Because I think it's super fun.
Oh, the manna thing?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So it's kind of like a manna season, like just enough for today. And I'm wrestling with God, like thinking about that story a lot in the Bible, how they're headed to the promised land. And I'm like, can we just get to the milk and honey phase? Like, I want to fast forward this, Lord. Like, how long am I going to be in this wilderness phase wandering around and eating just enough for today and somehow trusting you for the next day. But God was like, in the promised land too, it talks about like you'll have vineyards you didn't plant and houses you didn't build and all this stuff. And God's like, you don't get it. Like, that's my promise for you. You're this weird Israelite walking around with this big wagon full of like, I got shovels to plant my vineyard. I got lumber to build my house. Yeah. Everyone else is like, didn't you hear? Like, God's gonna like give it to you. And I'm exhausted from like,
you're like carrying, you're like, Lord, why are you giving me?
And I'm like, oh.
That's so funny.
So I was laughing. We were in prayer, and I was like, God gave me that picture. I'm like, oh, that's a good one. I see it. I see it.
So good.
I see the mismatch. Yeah, and and God's word is good too, because like, I feel like you can take it personal when the prayer doesn't come soon, but like, there's tons of people in the Bible who had it that way. Yeah. Like Joseph gets promised this stuff, and then he's in jail. Yeah. And then David has to like go in caves. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know why we think it's going to be different for us.
Right. Yeah.
There's not a gap period.
Well, I think that also, like, the lies are so loud in these seasons because, like, you're trying to find the Lord, right? But, like, the enemy is just like, nope, you will never have enough. Or, you know, like, one of the lies I believe that God wants to kill you because I don't know,
right?
You know?
It's
and
not
so
his
I think,
character.
No, but I think that it's, again, I think I'm so grateful for this season because I've so, like, now understand the heart of God more and more. And so, like, the lie that, like, I'm now unbelieving is that, like, he doesn't want bad things for me. He wants only good things for me. And so, like, that has just totally switched my perspective in my health, but even, like, just in life in general, you know? Like, he is my advocate. He's my protector. He's my father, which is just so fun.
And that's why the word and community is so important.
100%.
Because, like, whether it was, you know, bad news from the doctor and your friends being like, no, like, the Lord said this is going to be a good birth. Yeah. Or, like, you've encouraged me to, like, no, God has provision for I can see it. Why can't you see it? And you're like, because I'm in it. Because I'm in the bad news. Or I'm in the, like, you're waiting for a baby and you get your period again. And it's just too rough. And, like, you need people, you need to be telling other people what God's speaking to you so they can remind you when the enemy's trying to discourage you.
100%, yeah.
No, God didn't really say that. That's not really true. Yeah. It's not true for you. That's another one, right? You can believe for other people.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So good.
So good.
So fun.
Well, we hope that you are encouraged that God does speak to you. Get in His Word, get in community, get in worship. Some of the ways we've talked about, get those downloads like supernaturally. Share it with other people.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, right now we're in the as we record this video, we're in the 21 days of prayer and fasting. But if you feel stuck, that's any time of year. That's a really great way to
Fasting is like the gateway. I swear.
Yeah.
I love fasting. It's just become something that is just.
It's so good.
Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah. We love you
thanks,
guys.
ladies.